All right, welcome everyone to the Writer's Block, and I'm really happy to have Jana Carlson back with us today. I was looking through our archives, and she taught a SEO course for us back in July of 2023. So this is a kind of a revisit, but kind of a 2.0 of that. And so just wanted to welcome her again to the Writer's Block. So welcome, Jana.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we love having you. And Jana and I have been able to work together on several projects. And so, and she's such a great um, resource for Christian writers, does a lot of mentoring of Christian writers, and also kind of carved out a little specialty for herself in the SEO, search engine optimization world. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about um, SEO as a stewardship issue for Christian writers. And so um, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you view that, Jana, as an issue of stewardship.
Sure. Well, I think first we need to start by talking a little bit about what we mean by stewardship. And I really like the way Donald Whitney defines stewardship. He says it's the care and management of something that belongs to someone else. And that's just a very concise description. But Paul said to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, what do you have that you did not receive? And as Christians, we are stewards of everything we have because it's all been entrusted to us by God. So our time, our talent, and treasure, we often hear it said that way. And so as writers, we have a message that God has entrusted to us. And so if we want to be faithful stewards of it, we're wise to question, what does that look like? How can I best steward this message? And I think part of that for us as Christians comes from thinking about our readers, how we can best serve our readers with our message. And that relates to how we write about it and where we write about it. But I also think that SEO is a perfect tool for Christian writers to steward our message for various reasons. But primarily, it's a way for us to connect our message with the readers who need it most, and to do it in a way that is not self-promoting at all. And it's really, really good in that way for those of us who feel uncomfortable with some of the more conventional forms of marketing, I guess you could
Mm-hmm.
say. Um, so yeah, what I like about SEO from the stewardship perspective is just that it's a way for us to um, do something with our message to make it grow or to help it to reach the people who need it.
Yeah. And I love that. I love your definition of stewardship because as writers, like Christian writers in particular, we don't necessarily own the work that we're producing. Like it belongs to the Lord, and yet there's all of these ways and tools that we can use that will help amplify the message, and maybe sometimes we feel like, oh, I've written this piece, I've poured my heart out into it, and then it kind of disappears into this void, right? You put
Yeah.
your precious hard-fought words out into the world, and then sometimes it meets with success, and sometimes you just don't even know if anyone has read it. So how does SEO kind of help alleviate some of that?
Uh, well, so I guess a definition of SEO might come in helpful as well. As you said, it is search engine optimization. More technically, it's a process of um, developing or improving your website to increase its visibility in search engines. So it's a way of structuring what you write and how you you publish it strategically so that search engines recommend it to people who are searching for the type of content that you're creating. So I'm sorry, I forgot what your question was, how that relates to
Yeah,
the
I think,
the
I mean,
challenge of
you
writing without
described
it
it.
being right.
Yeah, you described it really well. And I think you kind of answered my question in defining it a little bit because um, when we do put work out into the world, if we're publishing on a website, this SEO techniques that you teach help them not to disappear necessarily, right? So
Yeah,
you're using these techniques to help your words last longer, be more searchable and findable online for the ideal reader who you think would
yeah,
benefit from it.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Well, for those who are listening who are not familiar, Jana has recently created a course inside the writer's block called Simple SEO for Christian writers. I mentioned earlier that you had done another teaching for us that's available online about a beginner's checklist for SEO. But tell us a little bit more about that and like maybe if you could review for us what you feel are some of the benefits that are available for Christian writers specifically by using some of the things that you teach in your course.
Sure. Uh, well, as I already talked about a little bit, one of the things I love about SEO is that it's not self-promotional. And that is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that Christian writers have in trying to get our words out there. We're rightly opposed to pride because we've been trained through God's word to be humble instead of prideful. And yet, when we try to share our words with others, it can sometimes feel like we're trying to draw attention to ourselves. And so then we struggle with, I've written this message and I genuinely believe that it's something that's God glorifying, something that can bless others, but how can I make people aware of it without coming across as prideful or self-promotional? And so SEO is a solution to that problem. Also, it's free. You can do SEO for free. There are ways of getting the word out about your message that require some financial investment, like advertising or just different tools that are out there. But you can learn SEO techniques and then implement them without any additional cost. So that is also attractive because most writers are not making thousands of dollars per
Right.
week or month or even year. So that's also very attractive. I also think that SEO is a way to sincerely and genuinely serve our readers. This, I will admit, this is easier for a nonfiction writer than a fiction writer. But if we have a message to share that is truly beneficial to our readers, if it answers a question or solves a problem or just provides encouragement or guidance or even just provides or speaks truth to an area that can sometimes be controversial or cause doubt, we have something valuable to offer. And when readers search for those answers or that encouragement or that solution online, SEO content can provide them what they're looking for. So yeah, it's a way to serve our readers. And as you also said, Kara, it can have a lasting effect. It can bear lasting fruit. Once you have learned SEO techniques and put them into practice, eventually you will see results from your labor, and it can last for years at a time without you having to do anything extra. So that feels very rewarding, and it feels like a really efficient and effective use of our time and our energy.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love that? It's kind of like the residual income philosophy, right? So it just kind of keeps, producing fruit for you out there. So
Yeah.
that is really awesome. Tell us a little, how did you get interested in doing this, and what's your personal experiences from your own writing platform? What kind of benefits have you seen?
Sure. So when I started writing, just for my own personal interest, my first Christian blog, I had that experience of pouring my heart and soul into my words and putting them out there for the world to see, and yet not a single person saw them. And it was so disheartening. And I just, yeah, I couldn't, I struggled to know what to do with that. And at the same time, I was working part-time for a small business, and part of my job was to write content for the website. And my boss had signed me up for an SEO training. Neither of us knew what it was at the time. So I took this training, and I latched onto it. It made so much sense to me. And I started implementing SEO for my work, for my client, or for my boss. And we saw great results from it. And suddenly it occurred to me, hey, I could use these skills in my own writing. And so yeah, I taught myself how to use SEO on my own website, and I saw results almost instantly. I took one of the blog posts that I had written a while back, and I revised it according to the SEO skills I had learned, and literally overnight that blog post showed up on the first page of Google search results at that time. And so naturally, I was hooked and I've been using SEO ever since. Today, I think it's about 80% of my website traffic comes from SEO, and it just keeps improving. So, yeah, it's my favorite thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why, because those are pretty encouraging things to have your website traffic come mostly through organic search. That is really, really exciting.
Mhm.
Um, as you were talking about, and you were talking about, I don't know how long ago it was when you took your course, but I think, like maybe somebody's listening to this and thinks to themselves, yeah, but everything online changes like every 30 seconds, right? And right today we're having this new resurgence of AI. So have you seen that impact SEO? And if so, how? And what does that look like?
Yeah, so SEO or AI has definitely impacted SEO. Um, some people are like 100% doomsayers, and they'll say like AI has destroyed SEO completely. I completely disagree with that. And I have evidence for that. I can show you actual metrics from my own website that prove that AI has not destroyed SEO. But the other thing is that I this is a new thing, so I'm still learning about this, but um, AI has almost become like another form of search. Um, and there, just as we learned techniques to optimize our writing for search engines, there are also techniques that we're learning about to optimize our writing for AI. And some of those techniques overlap. So the good news is that the SEO skills that I've learned and that I teach in my course, many of them will also improve your results in AI rankings. Uh, without me even trying, I've noticed that I'm getting a lot more traffic actually from AI. So Chat GPT, for example, is recommending my website as a source or a resource for people who are using it. And it must be Christians because I write Christian content. So that's really encouraging. Another thing is, I think it's important for us to keep in mind that the Christian writing sphere is slightly different than, let's say, the business world, for example. And one of the things that's really encouraging is that our faith is a very personal thing. It's a spiritual thing. And that is something that AI cannot compete with. AI does not have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. AI does not have a spiritual testimony to share. It's actually surprising how much AI can share, biblical truth about something. Like, it can regurgitate the right words and even provide like accurate scripture references, but it's that personal connection and like testimony element that's missing, and that can never be generated by a computer. That requires a human being with a soul. And so I think that's something that we can capitalize on. And I know in my own writing, I have seen really positive results from keeping that in mind and implementing some of the skills that I've learned.
Yeah, I think that's a good word for Christian writers who might be a little intimidated or fearful that it's going to just take over everything. And what you're saying, I believe, is true, that like the world is always going to need human writers, human authors who have unique experiences, who have a unique take on certain topics that AI just can never generate, right? It's not made in the Imago Dei. So we're always going to need Christian voices out there in the world. But it's a great tool. It's a great tool for us to use and capitalize. We have some questions coming in. Carrie asked, is SEO the same across all platforms? So I think, Carrie, are you asking, does it work the same whether you're searching on Google versus, Yahoo or something else?
Well, no, kind of what, yeah, in a way, yes, but like, so would the SEO be the same for your website, for your Substack, for even Facebook or whatever? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Words or keywords or what?
Right. So each search engine, like there's more than one search engine. Most people use Google. So when we think search engine, we think Google, but there are other search engines, and most of them work relatively the same way, but each of them has their own set of algorithms that are used to determine which sites they choose to and how they rank them in search results. So in that sense, SEO works the same across all platforms. However, something like Substack, for example, like the way that you would implement it on different platforms might look slightly different in the technical sense. Like Substack has SEO features and gives you the ability to implement some of the SEO skills that I teach in my course, for example, but you might do it slightly differently on Substack than you would on a WordPress website, for example. But the basic principles are the same across the board. Does that make sense? Okay.
And Kathy asked, do you think SEO works best if your niche is narrow and or ultra specific? So for broad, I think, we know that keywords are what drives SEO. So probably the more specific we are in our niche and in our writing helps in searches. Is that true, Jana?
Yeah, it definitely affects, like, I wouldn't say necessarily that your overall niche, um, like the specificity of your overall niche would necessarily impact it so much as um, the topic of the individual pieces that you're writing. However, I would say that if you do have a clearly defined niche, it can help your SEO because you will probably have multiple pieces on similar topics or related topics on your website, which, like, there's like a greater concentration of content on a similar topic, which would boost your SEO. But also, that's like a very general answer, because it also depends on what your niche is. Like, something that affects SEO is like competition. Like, if you have a lot of competition, if you're writing about a really popular topic where there are, like, corporations, for example, that are producing, multiple blog posts per day about that same topic, it's going to be harder for you to boost your SEO successfully. Whereas if you write about maybe a lesser known topic, or just something that there isn't as much competition on, it'll be a lot easier for you. So there's just so many different factors that can affect it. But for an individual piece, the more specific your topic or your target keyword, for example, if you want to talk about keywords, the more specific you are, the easier a time you'll have ranking high in search results for that specific topic.
So, and that whole realm of SEO, I think, is where people kind of might get a little glassy-eyed, right? Because that feels a little overwhelming. And you cover all of that, and you talk about how to do that, like how to overcome maybe the fear and maybe the overwhelm that you feel when you hear somebody say ranking for keywords and competition and keyword density and like all of those things. We can kind of
Yeah.
go, like what does all that mean? You cover all of that in your course, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I purposely designed my course to be simple and something that anybody can understand. If you are a blogger and you have enough skill to write a blog post, then you have enough skill to learn SEO. And I try to either completely eliminate all that technical jargon when I teach SEO, or at least define those words in a way that anybody can understand to make it simple and easy to follow.
Uh, that's good and encouraging. I've gone through many of Jana's lessons and in her course, and I can attest, like, it is easier than it sounds. Like, I think at first you just have to kind of learn some of the language, but she does a good job of not cluttering it up with jargon that you may or may not be familiar with. So,
Yeah.
and just so listeners know, we will have in the show notes links if you're interested in taking that course. And so it's a great way to get more familiarized with it, especially for Christian writers. So when you teach somebody about SEO and they come to you and they say, I really want to improve the traffic that my website, my writing is getting, what are some of the expectations for that, for somebody who's just getting started and they're starting to learn some of these techniques? How long does it take to start seeing some improvement?
I like to say that SEO is like planting a garden. So when you're learning the skills and when you're starting to implement them on your website, it's kind of like you're planting seeds, and it is very rare to see overnight results like I did the first time I used it. That's just an exception. And I have had some of my students experience really quick results, but yeah, like I said, that's exceptional. What is more common is for it to actually take months, like maybe even many months, close to a year before you start seeing a lot of fruit from your labor. But then it kind of has like a snowball effect. Like it starts to pick up momentum, and then you enjoy a harvest for a long period of time afterwards. So it does require some patience. It does require some diligence, but in the long run, it is so worth the wait and the investment of time that you put into it.
Yeah, indeed. I am seeing a lot of fruit from some SEO work that I've done. And it probably has taken about 6 months, I would say, to see a lot of the posts that I have written specifically with keywords in mind to like really pick up steam. But yeah,
Yeah.
it is one of those things. It's not a fast food type of strategy for growing this is more like a sit down course. Right? Like
Yeah.
you have to learn to kind of see it in a long game point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. And while you do have to wait to see those rewards, I find them more rewarding than other types of like promotion. Like, for example, 2 years after I began strategically implementing SEO on my website, my readership grew by 20,000%.
Mm,
20,000% because of SEO. I had to wait 2 years to see those results, but I don't think I would have gotten a 20,000% growth doing any other type of promotional strategy that
for
I can think
sure.
of.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
think of the people that spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get numbers like that. I mean,
yeah,
and most Christian writers do not have the deep pockets for promotion like that. I mean, that's insane.
yeah,
Those are crazy numbers.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's really great.
yeah.
Um, Kathy has asked, well, first of all, Carrie asked, do you have a specific formula you use? And Carrie, do you mean in your searching for keywords? Is that your question? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, more like, as I'm writing, I'm going to include this and this and this in order to make sure I have the most optimized SEO. What is it like a specific formula is the only word I can think of that you follow, or
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it a formula. Like if you go back to my first teaching on the block about SEO, I called it a checklist.
right,
So there is a way, if you need something really structured, there is a way where you can, kind of go through that checklist and make sure you've checked all the boxes. But as much as SEO is a science, there is also an art to it
right,
as well. And I wouldn't say that it's necessary every single time to check every single box on that checklist. Because there are just so many variables that
mhm,
influence SEO. So it's, yeah, like you can be structured about it, but it's not always necessary. And there isn't like a hard and fast rule I can tell you to determine when that is.
yeah,
It's something that SEO is kind of something that you learn over time. You can learn all the skills and all the principles I teach in my course as quickly as possible. But the more you do it, the more you continue to learn and to kind of recognize kind of little clues about what's working for you and what isn't. Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing in that way.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to replicate. So I have one blog post that shows up, like if you type in one word prayers, it's like the first thing. And I'm like, and I get hits on that like every single day, but I don't know how to replicate that. And now I think, oh, maybe I need to go back and like study that a little bit more. Maybe I need to make sure that that's a really clean one that, makes people have the opportunity at the end to like, if you like this, here's more like it or something, because it's just kind of random. Well, it's not random, obviously, I know there's nothing random with the Lord, but to me, it was just random that it just happened that way. So I'm like, how do I do that again?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good that you're asking that question, and that's the kind of question to ask to continue improving your SEO efforts. So it is worth your while to kind of consider like what is different about that blog post compared to some of your other blog posts. But something that does make it challenging is it can depend on the topic of the post. Like you could write 100 posts about prayer and not all of them would produce the same results because there's just so many variables involved.
Mm-hmm.
But one way of improving your SEO proactively is the research that you can do before you write something, which I don't know if you did that for that particular post that you're talking about, but that is something that I talk about in the course as well. Like some of the things to look for to help you determine how to write about the topic you want to write about in a way that will provide the most value and that's most likely to produce greater results from a search engine perspective.
Kathy also asked, do you find that considering SEO and keywords influences what you want to write about? And then how do you frame your piece? So are you coming to do you have an idea and then go and see if you have good keywords, or do you look for keywords first and then write from there?
Yes.
Both.
I do not like I don't like the practice of choosing what to write about strictly based on keyword strategies. As a Christian writer, I prefer to write a message that God has laid on my heart. I prefer to write from an overflowing heart, something that God has already done in my own heart, not something that's just a strategy in hopes of getting more readers. So I do think that that is actually a form of stewardship, stewarding the message God has given us, writing for his glory, not always just strategically aiming for numbers, visitor counts, or whatever. That being said, when I do have a topic that I feel led to write about, I do research on keywords, and it might not change what I write or what I write about, but it might influence how I write about it, or it might give me some ideas of maybe some additional things that I can include in the piece based on what I know people are looking for. For example, using Carrie's topic of prayer, let's say I decided to write a piece, something about the Lord's Prayer, like how to, or what does the Lord's Prayer mean, for example. If that was my original idea and I knew what I wanted to say about it, if I would do some research and see, well, people are also asking, why should we pray the Lord's Prayer? Well, I hadn't considered including that detail, but now that I know people want to know the answer to that question, that's something I'll consider including in my post. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to balance it. And you brought up the idea of numbers. And I think those can be such a great tool for helping us see patterns and see successes like Carrie was mentioning. But how much should we care about numbers, and sometimes they can make a day or break a day sometimes if we let them. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, numbers can be such a distraction for us. And I think our society has just conditioned us to aim for productivity. And in writing, that means, email subscribers or website visitors or whatever. Those types of metrics determine success in our world today. And as Christians, it's so important for us to align our definition of success with God's definition of success. And it goes back to the idea of stewardship. If God has given you a message and entrusted you with this gift of writing, what does faithful stewardship look like for you? And the answer to that question is not necessarily determined by numbers. It's about obedience and trusting the Lord to produce the fruit, trusting the Lord to bring the readers. But where I think the numbers are valuable to us is when we use them as a tool. So when you start implementing SEO, you need to find out if it's actually effective, if you're doing it well, is you need to look at the numbers. There's no other way of knowing if you're succeeding at your SEO efforts. And so the numbers are a tool to help you see what's working, what's not working. Analytics also help you to see what types of topics people are visiting your website for. It helps you to see, like, on what issues or which of my blog posts, for example, are connecting with readers and why. So those types of details, they're not necessarily a measure of success in God's eyes, but they're tools that we can use to help us connect with more readers and to continue to steward our message more effectively.
Yeah, that's so good. And something we always are probably going to need the Lord's help with determining what those numbers mean for us, right? And like you said
Yeah.
about being obedient and being a good steward is really a great way to focus that mind instead of using the numbers as your sole metric of that was good or that wasn't good, right? Was I obedient and did I steward the words the Lord laid on my heart well? So I think that's a really good way to think about it.
Yeah. And something else I should say is I do not use SEO on every single piece I write. Sometimes I write a piece and it is what it is. I feel like this is the piece I'm supposed to write. This is what I want to say. And whether it shows up in search results or not, that doesn't matter to me. But I do use SEO strategically for specific topics, which ends up leading people to some of those other posts I've written without SEO in mind. So there is a time and a place for SEO as well. And I think that's important to say, like, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing that you have to be thinking about every single time you pick up your pen or sit at your computer.
Right. That's good too, because there is that element of like just right.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes we can complicate it, but that's good that you do it that way as well. So we've talked a little bit about your course. I want to kind of conclude with that and just ask you to tell us a little bit more about what's inside. What are some of the techniques that someone would come away with after taking your course?
Sure. So, yeah, we've already talked a little bit about keywords and a little bit about research. So I teach strategic and simple keyword research and content research. And these skills help you plan your writing to best serve your readers. Even if SEO is not your goal, these techniques can really help you to plan your content and to better serve your readers. Like we talked about, understanding what it is that they're looking for, what they need from you. I also teach some basic formatting and on-page SEO techniques to apply both as you write your drafts and when you publish your blog posts, regardless of which platform you have your blog on, whether you use Substack or WordPress or Squarespace or whatever, all of these techniques would apply. Things like what's the optimal length of a blog post, or things like adding relevant links. How and why should you add links to your blog posts? How to add value to your blog posts beyond your words. While your words are valuable on their own, there are ways to add value to that from an SEO perspective and to serve your readers. Also, we talked about those metrics that we were just discussing, how to measure the effectiveness of your SEO. I know some people, SEO can be a very technical thing, and when we start talking about analytics, a lot of people's eyes glaze over, especially if you've ever tried to track analytics, if you've ever set up a Google Analytics account and looked at it and thought, oh, like this is pointless. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I teach that in the course as well. What is worth paying attention to and what you can completely ignore, and how to set it up in a way that's simple. And also simple ways to improve your SEO over time, because SEO is kind of a long game. It can take a little bit of time to figure out what's working and in what ways you can improve your own writing, specifically for your own readers and your own message.
That sounds great. So I would encourage you, if this has piqued your interest, to check it out. We can just tell everyone the price point for if you are a non-Writer's Block member, or if you're a free Writer's Block member, it's $97 for that course, and you get lifetime access to that. It's a work at your own pace thing, although you do have some access to Jana, and you can leave comments in some of the lessons if you have questions for her. She's there to answer it. And then if you're a premium Writer's Block member, then you get a special discount, and that is $77. Same setup, same lifetime access, and all the same content, but at a little cheaper price. So we'll put those links in the show notes if anyone is interested. So any final words, Jana, about SEO as a means of stewardship?
Any final words? Well, I will say one thing about the course. This is kind of going back to the question about how the things, technology and the internet and AI is constantly changing. Something that I try to do is keep this course updated. So if there is like a major change or something, I will update that as well in the course. But also, I would just say, if you have any doubts about SEO or your ability to learn SEO, please feel free to reach out to me. I will do everything I can to encourage you, because I really think it's worth the effort. Yeah, it has been nothing but a blessing for me and for many of my readers as well. So yeah, I just encourage you to check it out.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.